Have you ever been on stage and just felt that incredible surge of energy from the crowd? You know, the one that pushes you to do your absolute best? Or have you felt the exact opposite? That crushing pressure that makes you fumble, or that feeling of being lost in a group where you kind of just check out? Well, that's the whole paradox of having an audience.
So what's the deal here? It's a great question, right? The very same situation, performing in front of other people, can either rocket us to new heights or make us shrink. It can forge a champion or create a slacker. So what is going on? Turns out psychology has a really neat way of explaining this whole puzzle.
All right, let's meet the two stars of today's show, social facilitation and social loafing. You can think of them as two sides of the very same coin. One is all about getting supercharged by an audience, and the other, well, it's about hiding from responsibility when you're in one. So, let's break down how each of these actually works.
First up, let's talk about the good stuff. That moment when having eyes on you is a great thing. This is all about shining in that spotlight, and the engine behind it is something called social facilitation. So what is social facilitation, really? Simply put, it's the performance boost you get when people are watching you. But, and this is absolutely crucial, it works best on simple or well-practiced tasks. We're talking about things you can do almost on autopilot. The presence of other people just creates this energy that kind of sharpens your instincts. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Look at this. On some simple, repetitive task, a person working all by themselves might hit, let's say, 75% accuracy. That's the first bar. But now, you put an audience in the room and boom! That performance jumps all the way up to 90%. That is a huge difference, and it's all because they're being watched. And you have definitely seen this out in the wild. Think about the home field advantage for athletes who've practiced the skill a million times, or that seasoned guitarist who just shreds a solo in front of a roaring crowd, or even a public speaker who gets better and better as they feel the room's energy building. In all these cases, the audience isn't pressure, it's fuel. But of course, that's not the whole story, is it? Let's flip the coin and look at the other side. What happens when being in a group doesn't motivate you, but instead invites you to just disappear? Well, that's the powerful pull of social loafing. Social loafing. This is that classic group project feeling where you think, someone else will probably handle it. It's what psychologists call a diffusion of responsibility. When our personal effort isn't really being measured, our natural impulse can be to just conserve a little energy and let the others pick up the slack. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's not that people are being lazy on purpose or that they have bad intentions. It's a real psychological thing. The bigger the group gets, the more our own personal sense of accountability can just fade into the background.
And where do we see this happening? Oh, pretty much everywhere. There are classic studies that show people in a tug-of-war actually pull with less force per person than they would if they were pulling alone. Or think about a big brainstorming meeting where like two people do all the talking. And come on, be honest. Have you ever just kind of mumbled your way through happy birthday when you're in a big group? Yep, that's social loafing in action.
Okay, so we've got these two completely opposite forces, right? One that supercharges us and one that basically encourages us to slack off. So what gives? What decides which one takes over? Well, it's not random. It actually comes down to a pretty simple performance equation with two key ingredients. The first piece of this whole puzzle is what's called individual evaluation. But in simple terms, it's just asking, are you personally accountable? Can your specific individual contribution be seen, measured, or judged? If the answer is yes, you are way less likely to loaf.
And the second key works hand in hand with the first one. Task complexity. Is the thing you're doing a simple, well-rehearsed skill, something you could do in your sleep, or is it a complex, difficult task that requires all your focus, like trying to figure out a new piece of software for the first time?
And right here, this is where it all comes together. Let's walk through it. Look at that top row. You've got a simple task and you're being individually evaluated. Bam! That is the absolute sweet spot for social facilitation to kick in. But look below that, a complex task where you're being watched. That pressure can easily tip over into performance anxiety. Now here's the kicker. Look at the bottom two rows. The moment you shift to a group evaluation, where your personal effort is basically hidden in the crowd, it almost doesn't matter if the task is simple or complex. Social loafing is almost always the most likely outcome. Now this is actually fantastic news. You know why? Because it means we can actually influence the outcome. We don't have to be victims of these psychological forces. We can actually design our teams, our projects, our environments to harness the good side of this audience effect. So how do you do that? Here are three simple but super powerful ways to beat social loafing. First, make everyone's roles crystal clear. When everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing, that individual evaluation goes way up. Second, keep your group small. It is so much harder to hide in a group of 3 than it is in a group of 30. And finally, you have to actively value and acknowledge what each person brings to the table. When people feel seen, they show up.
So here's the bottom line, the big takeaway. Whether a group supercharges performance or sabotages it, it's not a matter of luck. It is a matter of structure. By understanding how accountability and task complexity play together, you can literally engineer an environment for success. You can build teams that facilitate great work, not loafing.
And that puts the power right back in your hands. The next time you're leading a team or giving a speech or even just working with other people, you have the tools to figure out what's going on. You know the equation. So the only question left is, how are you going to change it?